Well, hello again, and welcome to part two of the repair of this Westinghouse All-American 5 radio. This is, we stopped last time when replacing the electrolytic, and this is a picture here of that wired in and put back in the spot where the old one was. It's a little smaller than the other one, but fits in there kind of nice. Okay, so we're going to replace the capacitors. I think that one that you're seeing there is one I called a Black Beauty last time. I'd like to apologize. That's a Bumblebee, I think. And we're going to take almost all the capacitors now. Not all of them. We'll talk about that in a second. But we're cutting out. We're leaving the leads in. The leads are remaining soldered where they were. And I'm going to use what's called the coil method to try to hook up this new cap that I have. I'm going to cut off the excess parts of the lead that I don't need. And I guess I'm eyeballing that as best I can. And then you'll see me try and use the coil method. I'm going to really chop this up because I did it very poorly. And I think it's just lack of experience. It's something that I'm going to need to do more and more of until I'm good at it. So go ahead, Dan. Just clip off what you don't need. And I'll try and post in the comments. I'll try and post a link to the gentleman whose idea. This is done by a lot of radio guys, but I got my idea from a guy named John from Arkansas, whose channel is called Joe Earn One. I'll try and leave a link to that so you can see how you do this. If you do it right, it's nice and clean. You get yourself a little small diameter screwdriver, and then you just twist the wire, the lead on the capacitor around there, and it makes a nice little curly Q with a spot where you can slip over the wire that's still left in the chassis. I had a lot of trouble with it, and things are going to turn out okay, but it's still, I had good connections and good soldering joints, but good mechanical connections, but it didn't look very pretty, so we'll keep working on that. So here's that cap replaced and soldered in. It doesn't look bad, it's okay, and it's going to do the job. It's maybe not just as neat as I would like. But so we'll keep practicing that until we get it right. There was a little problem with that other capacitor in the background. Okay, so this cap must have been the first thing they wired in. You could not get to it. And it's the cap that goes between the chassis ground and the electrical ground. And for the moment, it looks like it's going to get to stay. So with everything replaced, I'm going to replace. Now, you notice that little ceramic capacitor there. I didn't replace that one either. And I didn't find any resistors that were out of tolerance. So I was lucky there. I had good tubes. Resistors were fine, and a few caps to be replaced. So with all that done underneath, it's time to do a little quickie bench test here and make sure everything is going well, that there aren't any problems. So I've hooked my little jumper up, and I'm going to have to solder in a wire in a little bit there between the tuning capacitor and the antenna. But, it came up, was nice and quiet. It was really very quiet, and got some stations. Got a little problem with the speaker. We're going to deal with that. We'll just hear a little bit. But everything was okay. So it was a good bench test. So I feel like everything I did under the hood there was A-okay. So with that part out of the way for the moment, we're going to look at some other things that need to be taken care of. This knob is just dirty. All we're going to do with it, I think, is just soak it in a little a little detergent overnight, some liquid dish soap, and some warm water, and we'll check it the next day, and I'm sure that's going to clean right up. The tuning knob, another little issue there. We'll see. It's turned very yellow. We'll see what we want to do about that. But there we go, and let it soak. So I think my this radio had been with a smoker, and you know that knob is very yellow. So I'm going to try to clean it up. And one of the suggestions that I got off YouTube from some other guys who are in this hobby was to make a little kind of slurry with baking soda and then scrub a little bit. So I'm going to add that until I have a kind of a little bit of a thick consistency at the bottom. Well, that's pretty watery, but that's all right. And we're going to try that and see if that gets any of the yellow off of this. So I'm using that little sanding pad that I used in the last video. So we're going to see, you know, there's a very good shot there, but unless you want to look at the back of my hand. But let's give it a little sand and, you know, we'll see, did that make a difference? Doesn't really look like it's doing much of anything. So we'll go a little more. Wipe it down and we'll see if, you know, are we making progress or what? So, took a little bit of the shine off the plastic too, but not so bad, but it didn't really clear it up at all. It's not getting yellow out. And so we may have to try something else. So here's sort of the next thing that I was suggested that you try, and that was bleach. Lots of folks described several different kinds of bleach to use. This is really all I had. So I'm going to let it soak in this and see what kind of results I get. So hopefully this is not a bad thing I'm doing there. So we'll sink it and we'll let it go for, I'm actually going to let this sit overnight and then we'll rinse it off and dry it out tomorrow. And see what, keep your fingers crossed and we'll see what we've done. All right, this is the next day. I'm going to rinse that tuning knob off, or sorry, the volume knob, sorry. And we're just going to scrub it a little bit. I'm not going to show you all that, it's boring. But we're just going to kind of get in the crevices there with an old toothbrush. And see if we can clean it up. It's going to look, this is going to turn out fine. That thing was just crusty with junk from so many years of use. And so there we go. Find the camera down there. Yep. So there it is, nice and all cleaned up. Everything's great for that little guy. All right. So the next big question was for the tuning knob. Can I get it clean? The Clorox looked a little yellowed, so I thought, well, maybe that's doing the trick. But when I rinsed it off, you can see that it really there's no change there. So about the only thing it did was the little part in the center that was gold is now sort of a splotchy silver. We'll deal with that. I think we can lightly sand the center part and get that back up. And there it is. So guess what? My knob, and it looks a little dull. It's not as clear as it was, but I think we can take care of that. But my knob is yellow, and that's all there is to it. It's not going to clear. It's going to stay yellow, and we're just going to live with that. All right, so we're going to give the volume knob a little lacquer spray just to shine it up a little bit, and it'll give it some protection. And so we're just going to go around this a couple times and give it a little squirt. Try not to get it on my patio table there. It actually looks like it's going on my table, but it's not. So, and that's all we're going to do to take care of that little guy. So one of the things that we're going to have to do here is, in the process of working on this, the little thing I have in my hand, disposable micro applicator. It's like a little teeny tiny Q-tip. And the little sanding block that I used was something that the ladies use for their nails. You know, and I found that because I think I told you last video that my wife does manicures and pedicures. Well, this is also something that she uses, and you get that at the beauty supply store. But I tell you, those little things are darn handy, and they're teeny. And what I did there, it's already passed, but what I did there was use that little thing to slip up behind the speaker because I'd ripped the cone. I'll talk about that in a minute, and sort of push the cone where it was pressed in sort of back level with the unbroken part of the cone, I guess you'd say. So, and now we're going to use the tacky glue with a little water and a coffee filter, and I'm going to try and fix this tear. The tear it's going to turn out is actually a little bigger than what I thought, so I'm going to use a couple of patches. Probably better, I don't know, and you'll see when you get through, it's maybe better to use one big patch than a bunch of little patches, but that's not what I did. Again, as I do this more and more, I probably get better at it. But I'll tell you something, I did not initially cover this speaker because I always watched the guys who said, oh, I accidentally put my finger through it. And I'm just like, well, if you're careful, that should never happen. Well, I was doing something, I didn't record it. I was doing something that was not on tape, and I managed to screw it up pretty bad here. It's such paper thin material that it's almost impossible if you hit it that you're not going to bust it. My glue is a little too wet. It's running towards the middle, which I don't like. As a matter of fact, I'm going to end up in the end just using the glue straight out of the tube. I like that better than actually trying to, mix it with a little water and use it. So the lesson is, anytime you're doing this, be sure and cover the speaker. I just thought, well, if you're just careful, you're not going to cause any problems. Well, I caused all kinds of problems. And I think also those little mini Q-tip applicator things, I'm going to, from time to time, go back behind there and try and push the cone up to where the patch is and where some of the glue is. And I think I'm actually going to do a little more damage doing that. So the point is, these things are super duper fragile, and we're going to, in the future, you're going to see me put a cover over those things right away, because if you don't have to do this, you don't want to. So there, I put the patch on, but I noticed that part of the speaker was cone on the backside was not up and touching it. See, that's too thin. And if it's too watery, I'll tell you what's going to happen is these things are paper thin, and if it's water, it's going to kind of collapse a little bit. So I'm never going to thin this stuff out again. As a matter of fact, you just only put some more glue down. I think I'm going to use, from here on out, I'm just going to use 100% glue. So, again, trying to get from the backside everything up against the little patch. And then once I get the patch sorted down, I'm going to go over the patch, but I'm also going to, and there's the second patch I put on. And I don't know if that's because I made a bigger tear or if there was a little bit more to it than what I realized. But I want to get some glue on the speaker, covering both the speaker and the patch. And then, of course, I want stuff on the patch as well. So away we go. And 1, 2, 3. We're going to get it all covered here eventually. And it's going to end up being okay, but it doesn't look very pretty. And up at the top there, around the outer edge, it is sort of collapsed a little bit. It's a little hard to see, and I thought, well, it's not gonna play right. It's gonna play. We're gonna test it later on, of course, but it's gonna play okay, just not perfect. So while I've got glue out and everything going, and this thing, it seems so incredibly fragile to me, I'm going to go ahead and just use this glue and paint around the, apply some of that around the edges of the speaker to sort of maybe firm it up a little bit and give it a little strength. And just in doing that, I actually made another tear, which it was very clean, and I'm not even going to put a patch on that. I'm just going to try and spread glue across the crack. It was a very thin little crack, and using a lot more glue than I remember. But hopefully this will sort of strengthen it up a little bit, because that was a hairline crack, and I think I can get some glue on either side. Yeah. So I never plan on repeating this. One of the first things I'm gonna do when a chassis comes out is either remove the speaker and put it off to the side, or we're going to cut out a little cover to put over it, so we don't do this again. So this is going to dry for a day, and then I'm going to come back and put some black paint on here, some speaker black, and hopefully it'll look, it won't look so bad. So the last thing I'm going to tackle here is it's like a cardboard material. It's the kind of part around the speaker there. WorldsGreatestGlue.com. This is called the last glue you'll ever need. It's something I buy every time the fair comes every year. There's a guy there, and I buy some of this from him. And I use this on everything. Literally, I've fixed all kinds of furniture and metal to metal and plastics and all kinds of stuff. So this little surround, or this little gasket, is just got a couple of places that where it's come loose, and it's no sense in trying to replace it or anything like that. I'm just going to use this glue to glue it down. Now that glue is interesting in that it, as long as it stays on a surface, it just stays wet. But if two things press down with it in between and it loses oxygen, it hardens up immediately. And the problem with, like I said, this is like a cardboard material, and the problem with that, this is that it soaks in. It soaks in so quick that I can't really, I really can't get it to bond. But once it does, once I put enough in there and I can get it to bond, it will, it will last, no problem. And I really shouldn't be using my finger either, because if you use your finger to hold it down and you happen to get some of that stuff between your finger and the material under your finger, you are stuck. And so the dryness of this, soaking that stuff up, is giving me a little heartache, but I think we're getting there. So you can check out that website. I'm not affiliated, like I said, with them in any way. It's just once a year I go buy this stuff from a guy at the state fair, and he runs little demos of different ways you can use this. And it also comes with a powder, so if it is on a surface where it is wet and won't set, you can put this powder on it and it'll harden up immediately. So I've used that sometimes when I have a crack in a piece of plastic and I can't get this product down in the crack, but I can put it on top of the crack and put the powder on it. Fixes it great. So there, I'm going to hold it down. It's going to work great. So I'm not going to show you the process here. I just went through and cleaned up the chassis, got the dust out, used some Clorox wipes to clean it off. It's not a spick and span cleaning, but it's a whole lot better than it was. Okay, so the back has kind of gotten dry and curved through the years. There you can see kind of a curve, and I'm going to try and flatten it out a little bit just to make it look better. I'm going to iron it. Put the iron over it and spray some steam on it just to get it a little moisture in. Put another towel on top of that, still using steam, and I'm going to iron it as flat as I can. And I'm going to put something heavy on top of it and let it dry. And when I pull it out, we'll see if that worked. So with the back flattened down, I'm going to give a little lacquer spray to both sides of the back just to strengthen it up a little bit. Okay, so one of the things I need to fix, initially I thought the radio, it didn't pull in any stations at all, but that was because there's a wire between the tuning capacitor and the antenna, which was not connected. And so on my first kind of visual inspection, once I got the chassis out, I took a look at that and saw it. That's why the bench test, you've seen the little jumper there, and it works fine. So the question now is, what do we do? Well, of course, I found the smallest gauge wire. That was a little tiny gauge of a wire, and it was not long enough to actually reach. I don't know how it ever made it to the antenna, but at one time it must have, obviously. So what we're going to do is I found the smallest wire I could find, and we're just going to go from the tuning cap, and we're going to go down to the antenna, and we'll just hook that back up, and that should work fine. So the only real problem I had, and I cut out a lot of the time on this particular segment because I had to spend some time thinking about it. When the antenna is very, very, very thin wire, very small wire. So I had to find a little bit of that wire that I could sort of pull up and deposit a little drop of solder on the end, sort of priming that, getting it ready to go for when I wanted to connect this red wire. And unfortunately here, my hand is going to be in the way, but I'll show you a picture right at the end of what it looks like. It's not that pretty, again, but it's going to work okay. So there it is in, and it doesn't look too bad, I guess. I don't know. You'll see here in a second. So with that in, I'm probably going to give it another little quickie bench test just to show that it works. I don't have the tuning knob on there, so hopefully we'll just, if we can get any kind of station there, and that's what it looks like. So it's okay. That'll do. Once we get it buttoned up, nobody's going to see that. And hopefully there's that antenna kind of moves around too, so, but hopefully this will be a fix that will last. Okay, so the speaker is dried for a day, and just to make it look better, I'm going to take some black paint and I'm going to paint over the speaker just so it looks a little prettier, since right now it looks kind of ugly. But it looks better now that it's dry. But anyway, here we go. All right. Does that look better? I hope so. And it actually works. I've threaded the power cord up through a little slit there to the little hole where the power cord goes through. And I actually took a staple out that held that together. So I saved the original staple there. We're just going to kind of work it back through the holes that are in the back, and going to pinch them down a little bit. So the the back now looks, we'll get a better shot later, but it's straightened all nice and flat, and a little lacquer spray. It looks pretty decent. The next thing we're going to tackle is the cabinet. Hopefully you can see there with the light reflecting off of that. You know, at an angle there, you know, it looks like it's in pretty good shape, but sometimes when the light goes across it, there's some pretty heavy-duty scratches. There's some place where, I don't know if it got hot and just sort of little bubbles in it or something, and doesn't look good. So the sides are fine. The front's fine. The front has one scratch I'm not going to be able to get out. But the sides are fine, and there's no cracks or chips or anything like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wet sand and see if I can get the top back to smooth, even though the sanding will probably take a little bit of the shine off the top. But I think with the Novus we can get that to come back. So we're going to give it a little work over and see what it looks like. Okay, so we've gone over it. We've hit places, hit them again until I didn't see anything in the top. Let's just see. You know, the shine has come off, but I'm not seeing any of those bubbly areas, and there were some long scratches. And so, you know, let's that'll be okay. When we get finished, that should look just fine. I don't know if I'm going to show the when there's a little edge along the front that wasn't very. There was some dirt in there and grime and a few little scratched areas right there on that little front curved part. But the front face just dirty, and the sides are fine. Little Novus on all those. And it should look good. So, Novus 321, that's what I'm going to do to this. I'm going to do it to the whole thing, but I'm not going to show you the whole cabinet. I'll just show you the top, since that was the worst part. So we're going to start with Novus 3, which is the most aggressive, and see if we can smooth out that look on the top. It looks better already, but it's wet. And what we'll do is then dry that. I'll do the Novus number 2, and then we'll finish up with Novus number 1 and see if we like the results, or is there more that we need to do. All right, so that's all the Novus products, and it's, you know, that looks pretty good. Not quite as shiny as the sides or the front, but it's not bad, and if I wanted to take it another step, there are some car care products I could put on the top to put an extra shine on it, so it's okay. Okay, so all the work on the cabinet, the gold lettering that was on the front totally came off. I'm using that same calligraphy pen that I used before that has sort of a flat tip on it, sort of like a screwdriver. but very small. And I'm effectively showing you sort of the second coat of going over all these letters. It's supposed to be a permanent marker, so we'll see. We'll see how long it lasts. So I wanted to finish this radio this time around. I don't think that's going to happen. So next video, we're going to do a quickie align, and then we're going to reassemble it. And that should be it. We'll give it a big thumbs up, and then we'll go to the pile and search for the next project. Thanks for watching. I appreciate it. If you enjoyed my videos, I hope you'll like and subscribe. And please don't forget to click on the little bell button so you'll be notified anytime I post a new video.